violets or blue, and I think this paper is great, and I hope you will too. Today I'm going to be demonstrating how to make the brand new 10-inch paper rose blocks by Lori Holt using foundation paper. Your instructions are on the inside cover, and this block looks super hard. It is not hard, it is super easy. You can either make a scrappy version or you can make the roses have the same fabric in each round for a less scrappy version. Today we are featuring the Gentler Times collection by Lori Holt for Riley Blake Designs, along with one of her bee backgrounds. Before we make our blocks, let's talk about the supplies I'm going to be using today. Obviously you need a rotary cutter, but you will also need a quick press seam roller if you don't want to iron each step, a sew-line glue pin for your starting pieces, your add a quarter plus for trimming, and size 90 needles are best to use because they poke the paper a little bit sharper and the paper's easier to remove. I also like to use the 10.5-inch square Creative Grids ruler to trim my blocks down, and using the Caterpillar Glow Mat will really help you see your papers as you're trimming. After you've gathered your paper and fabric, let's jump into this block. The first thing I'm going to do is take one of the papers out, and then we're going to cut on the dotted lines only. Now I want to point out here, each of your sections is labeled. So you have A, B, C, D, and E, and they're not exactly the same. So you will see on your paper it says join to section D, join to section A, join to section B. So you don't have to worry about keeping your paper in a certain spot. You can just sew, and then you'll have notes when you're ready to put it together. So now what I like to do is put creases on all of the solid lines. What that does for you is when you turn that over, you have a general idea of where the fabric goes. It just helps you in the piecing section. The ruler I'm using today is the Add a Quarter 6-inch plus pink ruler by CM Designs. Once you have this done, let's talk about your fabric. I'm going to start by showing you how to make section A. We have our fabric written by number, so placements 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., and you can see where that placement is. We have cut our fabric according to this instructions, and we've labeled them. And what we're doing is we're doing rounds. So we're going to do pink in the center. The first round we're going to use red. The second round we're going to use pink, and the last round we're going to use a red. But like I mentioned in the intro, you can do this completely scrappy for the roses and for the outside. Fabric placement, you can have so much fun with it, but you're gonna love making this block because it is so much easier than it looks, and this is the funnest and most creative paper we've done to date. When I'm making a block like this that has so many pieces in its foundation paper, I like to use a light box. So we're going to start in the center with number 1. Anytime you're doing foundation paper, you start with the lowest number. And we put little stickies on our fabric just because there's so many, so we know what we're working with. And we're going to start with fabrics 1 and 2. So I'm going to turn that over and I can see 1 and 2. I'm going to use some sew-line glue. I'm going to put this pink 1/4 inch up from where that crease is. Then I'm going to put fabric 2 right sides together here, turn this over, and we're going to go to the sewing machine and sew from here to here. Now I sew a 1/4 inch before the line and a 1/4 inch after the line, and I use a super small stitch length like a 1.4. So you can see my stitching. I started a 1/4 inch before the line. I went a 1/4 inch past the line. I did not back stitch. I'm going to flip this over, finger press, and then press with the iron with no steam. You can also use a quick press seam roller, but either way, just don't use any steam. So we have fabric 1 and 2, turn it over, and here's fabric 3. We're going to place this Add a Quarter ruler here. They're just going to pull the paper down. So you have some stitches here, you've just moved them flat. Add the Add a Quarter and trim. Then we're going to add piece 3. So you'll turn this over and place it right sides together. Now a tip is, if you go like this and you have the light box, you can make sure you're gonna actually cover all of these pieces. We've made our pieces nice and big, so that shouldn't be a problem. You'll turn this over and stitch across line 3. So once I've sewn that, finger press, just get that nice and flat, turn this back over. Now we're at number 4. So pull this back just a little bit, crease it at the number 4, come back, trim a 1/4 inch away. So this paper has very little waste, you can see, and then we're gonna put this, go like this, make sure it covers, and I'm gonna be following the same directions I did on the previous steps, and this one you're gonna be going in a round, and so you have to go one number at a time. And today I'm using the Caterpillar Glow Premium Light tablet, and that just makes it where I make sure I have all of my fabric in the right placement. So I just completed round 1, and now I'm just gonna keep doing the same method and just keep going. I was at 4, I'm gonna move to 5, and so on. So this is round 2. We're gonna be moving to round 3. Round 1 and round 2 have 4 fabrics, and round 3 uses 6 rectangles. Now once I have each section done, I am going to take this to the iron and just get it nice and flat with no steam. So now I'm finished with section A. Section B, each of them have a 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. They're a little bit different, but the instructions tell you what to cut. I'm gonna make one of these leaves just to show you how to do it. You're gonna start with the leaves in the center, put your fabrics right sides together. You can glue this down. And you're gonna use those same techniques to go all the way around to make 4 leaf units. So here is section B, and I've already made section C, D, and E, and you're just using that same technique. Now I'm going to talk about how to trim these down, and so basically you have 4 seams left, and that's it. So here is section A. This is going to be the top of your block and the bottom of your block. I am not going to cut these lines. I'm going to leave those there. All of the ones that say join to section A, B, C, and E, I'm trimming those lines only. You're going to cut exactly on the line. It is very important to cut exactly on the line for accuracy. So here is A. Now I'm going to move to section B. This says join to section A, so I'm going to cut there. And I'm also going to cut this diagonal line because it's part of the inside of the block. What I'm leaving uncut is the outside of the block because I like to trim that at the end. So this 90-degree angle I am leaving uncut. Same thing here, cut on the join line and the diagonal. D is just one long diagonal and a 90-degree angle, so we're only cutting the diagonal. And section E also is just one diagonal. Now you could cut the outside lines if you would like to. I like to leave those uncut because at the very end of the block, I like to cut down. So you're gonna flip this over and you're gonna follow this. So it says join to section D, join to section C, join to section E, and join to section B. So what's great about this paper is everything is labeled and there's not a lot of thinking. So these are gonna come next. I'm gonna move D and E outside. I'm gonna start with B. First thing we're gonna do is put right sides together, and you'll notice there are dots, 2 dots on each side. So I'm gonna poke my pen through the first dot, Then I'm going to find the second dot on the back and poke my pen through that. Then I'm going to put these together as flat as possible, remove the pen, and then pin again. I'm going to go to the other dot. I'm going to do the same thing. Put your pin in the dot in the front and the back, make it nice and flat, and pin. Now, here, I also like to put more pins, and what you'll do here is just put your pin through at the 1/4 inch line and make sure it hits the 1/4 inch line on the back and pin. You're not having to line anything up. You're just making sure that when you sew on one side, that you're going to be sewing on that same line on the back side. So here I'm going to start at this end, and I'm just going to go all the way across. I'm going to stitch a little bit further off the paper, and I'm not going to use any back stitches, and I'm stitching right on that dotted line. Okay, so when you fold this out, this should be a straight line. But what I'm going to do before we move on is these little papers right here, those need to come off. They're good to pull off now because if you leave them on, they're going to be sewn into other seams further down, and they're going to be really hard to pull these out. Push to one side. So this is B. Do the same thing. I'm going to find section C. Right sides together, match up the dots, put pins across, matching up those dotted lines, and sew all the way across. Okay, so you're going to see there are these two little triangles right here. There should be one here and one here. I'm going to just cut those off so that they just stay out of the way on the next part. Now I'm going to go to section E. So that's here, E. Okay, so here what I wanted to show you, remember when we sewed A to B, I pulled these papers off. I forgot to do that here. So now we're going to do it, and I'm going to show you how much harder it is to do it once you have another seam on there. It's going to be much harder to pull off. And then this one is sewn in here, so you're going to have to actually pull it here, and then part of it is actually going to have to stay in there now because I forgot to do that. So there'll be a little piece of paper stuck in there, and that's okay. So you can see the block really forming. We're going to add the very last section. Now I'm going to do an all over press before we trim the block down. Now on the back, I want to make sure these seams are nice and flat and going away from section A. And on the front, now that I'm done, I am going to steam this nice and flat before I trim it down. So here's the front of your block and the back. And I'm not going to cut on the glow mat right now just because I think this is easier. Now, there are two options. You can just cut on this outside line on all four sides. That's super easy. Or you can take a Creative Grids 10.5 inch ruler and just place it right on there as close to the lines as possible and trim. And look at how beautiful that block is. And that was so simple to get such a beautiful block. Now you're going to take the paper off. I think it's best to go in a circle from the outside in. So I just kind of go around the edge and then move in as we go. Now if you use the size 90 needle that's nice and sharp, this should come right off. So once you have all the pieces off, you just want to make sure all of these little pieces are off. And the front will look like this. This paper pad is amazing because you can make 42 blocks, which is an excellent deal for the price of the paper. When you're putting your quilt together, you can rotate your finished blocks and it will give your quilt a little bit different variation and make the quilt look a little bit more natural. Let's talk about fabric placement. On the one we sewed today, we kept the fabrics in the round the same, and we used 2 greens in the leaf and 1 background. The next block, everything is scrappy except the background. So there are no rounds in the center of the roses. There's just scrappy fabrics. This block has the same center rows as we sewed today, and the green becomes the background and the white becomes the leaves, and both of those are totally scrappy. Now I wanted to show you another colorway using Threads of Grace by Cassidy Grace, which is Lori Holt's daughter. And this one, we just used 2 different fabrics for the roses and rotated them. 2 fabrics in the greens, and then we used a background from the collection. So you can see from all of these blocks, you can get so many different looks. We're so excited to bring you the Paper Roses foundation paper to make these beautiful blocks. This paper is featured in this new free pattern and quilt kit that is made using the Berry and Sage collection by Lori Holt. And looking at the block we made and the quilt she designed, you can get so many different looks. So make sure to check out the paper and the free pattern at Fat Quarter Shop, and then keep an eye out for the new Berry and Sage collection by Lori Holt. And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.